At the State Department today, a spokesman acknowledged Mahmoud Abbas has pretty much lost Gaza, and the U.S. is now looking at ways to aid President Abbas's new government without doing more harm than good. Wolf?
Jamie McIntyre watching this for us. Thanks, Jamie. There's real fear the fighting between Hamas and Fatah could spread to the West Bank and then set moderate and radical Muslims against one another across the entire region. Joining us now, retired U.S. Army Colonel Pat Lang, former head of Middle East Intelligence over at the DIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency at the Pentagon. Pat, thanks for coming in.
My pleasure.
How concerned should the U.S. be that what has happened in Gaza, Hamas taking over there, getting rid of Fatah, could spread and then happen on the West Bank as well?
Well, I think it's a possibility. I mean, the fact of the matter is that however unpleasant it is to us, the Palestinian people in elections that everybody says are pretty fair, in fact, elected these guys to run the parliamentary government. And in fact, it's very difficult to choose other people's leaders for them in the long run. So I think maybe the American policy has been on the wrong track in this. You know, no matter how much we may dislike these guys, they have offered a truce to Israel for a 10-year period, and we ought to be looking at that as the best alternative of a group of bad alternatives.
Earlier today, Saeb Erekat, a well-known Palestinian figure here on CNN, a Fatah member, suggested that outside forces were instigating this Palestinian-on-Palestinian violence. And he also said this. Listen to this.
We are determined not to allow what happened in the Gaza to happen in the West Bank, and we stand tall with this.
Suggesting it's part of a bigger regional problem, and a lot of experts, as you know, see the hand of Iran, maybe Syria, in a lot of this mischief.
Well, with regard to what he said about the West Bank, they were determined not to have this happen in Gaza as well. I think, you know, that as you've been saying today, in fact, there's a major stress being put on the region by the fact that the Iranians are seeking to realize what they think of as their place in the sun, expanding their influence, getting recognized as being a paramount power in Islam, things like that. On the one hand, on the other hand, the United States government has its own agenda seeking westernization, democracy. These two things are exacerbating local conflicts of this kind in a tremendous way. And the real problem in this region is between us and the Iranians, really.
How much of this current explosion of violence in Iraq, in Gaza, in Lebanon, a threat potentially between Turkey and Kurdistan in the north, is a result of the U.S. invasion of Iraq, getting rid of Saddam Hussein?
Well, the specifics of the invasion of Iraq, of course, set off a maelstrom inside Iraq as we took the lid off a jar full of competing factions that was in Iraq, and now they're all competing again. But there's this larger problem involving the whole region, involved in the fact that we have been pushing the whole region to change in directions in which are not natural to them, and which various people in the area seek to manipulate and make use of in order to advance their own particular interests. So, in general, our policy in the region is not helping the cause of things being quiet there.
I asked the question because a lot of analysts have suggested that the U.S. now, given the situation in Iraq, is seen as weakened. And whenever the United States in that part of the world is seen as weakened, others want to take advantage of that and score their own points.
I think it is true, in fact, that people see that it is very unlikely that we are going to intervene on the ground anywhere in the region with ground troops because of the fact we're so absolutely committed in Iraq to the very limit of our capacity, as you've been saying. On the other hand, they also know that the United States remains vastly powerful in terms of air power, possession of a huge arsenal of nuclear weapons, things like this, and that this country is not something they can discount. So we do have a lot of leverage in terms of that kind of implied power, plus the fact that there are a lot of things people want from us in terms of recognition and assistance in the credit markets and all kinds of things like that. We do have manipulating levers if we wish to use them.
If you were still at the Pentagon, what would you be advising the Secretary of Defense and other top officials?
Well, to the extent that the Secretary Gates would let me, I would say that the Defense Department ought to say that we need to seek to engage, especially the Iranians, but also a number of other groups around the area, in various things that involve our desires and their desires in such a way as to reach some meeting of the minds that will bring the temperature down enough so that we can restore a status in which at least people are not shooting at each other.
You mean talking to Iran and Syria, among others?
Absolutely, among others.
Who else?
Well, I think you need to talk to the Turks in particular as to what their intentions are with regard to our Kurdish clients. I mean, there's no doubt the Kurds are relying on us tremendously. We've encouraged them to set up what amounts to a very autonomous state in the north. We owe them something in that regard. There are the factions inside Iraq that involve the different Shia militia armies and parties, as well as the different insurgent groups. All of these groups are groups in which we can engage, in which we're starting to do now out in Anbar province with the tribes and some of the secular insurgents.
Pat Lang, thanks for coming in.
My pleasure.
And still ahead, the